Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we're going to be setting up some lighting in our scene. We're going to add some sunlight and a sky, and we're going to also look at the 5 different types of lighting available to us in Unreal. Let's dive in and learn all about it. So if we were to switch from our currently unlit mode into the lit mode, you'll see that everything is 100% dark. And the reason for this is that we've got no lights in our scene, nothing by which to illuminate everything around us. So let's go ahead and create a new folder in the outliner, which we're going to call global. And this is going to be for stuff like global lighting. And then we're going to go to the quickly add to project and open up our place actor panel. And in here, we're going to go to the lights tab and have a look at the 5 different types of light that we can put into our scene. Perhaps the simplest to think of is the point light. If I drag this into our scene, you can see immediately the kind of effect that it has. Light emanates from a single point outwards, and that's pretty much it. We can change how powerful that light is. We can change how it trails off. We can change the color of the light. But the fundamental property of that light is that it is a point source light. So let's remove that light now, and let's try a spotlight instead. So a spotlight, as the name suggests, has some sort of directionality to it, but it still emanates from a point. Now, I think these are very much like your standard kind of halogen lights, your spotlights in your house. And obviously they can be very useful for trying to illuminate a specific area or a specific object. All these lights can be rotated. So obviously with a point light, rotation didn't make much sense. But with a spotlight, rotating allows us to illuminate different areas. So that's the spotlight. Notable mention just to the rectangle area light. Rather than being a point source here, you can see that the light's actually emanating from the entirety of this rectangle. So you can see if I point it down, it's just a wider area for it to come from. And obviously this would work well with office lighting or anything where you want to illuminate from a larger area rather than from a particular point. And then 2 interesting ones here that are more natural are the directional light and the skylight. You can see the icon for directional light looks like the sun, and that's because the most common use of it is in fact as a sunlight. So if I stick this in the scene, you'll notice that it doesn't actually matter where I place this actor. I could place it anywhere, and the light doesn't change. The only thing that's important here is the rotation of the light. If I change the rotation, you can see it changes the angle of these rays of the sun. And that's because the sun is so infinitely far away from us that essentially the light that reaches our scene is all parallel, is all going in a single direction. And that's why it's called a directional light. So the position doesn't matter because it's so infinitely far away that it shouldn't make a difference. And then the other thing, so if I delete this one out and we put our skylight into the scene, this is another one where the direction doesn't matter, but this time it's because the light is coming from all directions. And at the moment, it's actually not showing us anything very much at all. And if we go and have a look at the description of what a skylight does, you'll see that the light actually captures the distant light in our level and applies it to the scene as light. So typically the way we deal with this is by bringing in a massive sphere that goes around our entire level and simulates the really far off sky and distant horizon. Now, a place that we can go and find this is if we open up our content drawer, go to the settings button in it, and select Show Engine Content. And then you see an engine folder pops up. Let's click on that. And inside that folder, we're going to search for Sky. Now, what we want is this BP Sky Sphere. We can go and drag this into our level. And you can see if you pop out of the level that we've now got a sphere here that is absolutely massive and basically simulates the far off distant sky and the clouds and the sun in the sky. So that is what our skylight is trying to capture, the light for that. So we need to click on the skylight and we need to go scroll down to a property called Recapture Scene, and we click on Recapture. And you can see that the light now gets updated to represent that kind of soft twilight that is illuminating everything a little bit evenly. And that's what we wanted. And you can see inside it's still quite dark. We've only got a little bit of light spilling in from the outside, but it's given us a nice soft ambient light. So typically what happens is that we will put the skylight and the sky sphere together and also have a directional light on top of this as well. And we can set the direction of that light as we see fit by just kind of rotating it around like this. And if we then go back and select our sky sphere blueprint and look at the details pane for it, you can see that there is a link that it could want to a directional light actor. So we can select this asset by selecting the actor in our scene to pick that directional light. And you can see that instantly what it has done is it's changed to a much brighter daytime and the sun is high up in the sky. And that's because by linking those two in together, what we've said is that the sky sphere should match the angle of this directional light. So if I put the angle of the light really low, the sun hasn't quite updated because we'd need to go in to our BP sky actor and hit refresh material, which then redraws it, and you can see the sun is now low in the sky and the color of the sky has been automatically updated. So these two things being linked together is a really good thing. It makes them physically much more accurate. So I'm just going to put it back to the sun being reasonably high up in the sky, and then we can go to our BP sky sphere and just refresh its material one more time. Now, these actors haven't gone in the global folder yet, so let's go drag them in there. And these are all the things that apply at a global level. So it just allows us to tuck them away nice and neatly. So I'd like to challenge you to add some sunlight to your own scene. So you're going to add a sky sphere, add a direction light and a skylight, and link them together as I've just done, so that when you move the direction light, it can update the material for the sky sphere. And the skylight then can recapture the light from that sky sphere and change the rotation of the sun. Maybe you want a different mood to your game. Mine's more high in the sky, but you might want a lower sun to represent a later time in the day. Pause the video and have a go. Okay, welcome back. So, well, this is how I've got it at the moment. The only thing I want to check is the skylight looks quite orange, so I'm guessing we haven't recaptured the skylight. So I'm going to the skylight and then scrolling on down to where it says recapture. If I hit recapture now, you can see the skylight has gone far more blue in the shadows, and that's because the reflected atmospheric light in our sky sphere is more blue because of the sun being higher and the rays not getting scattered and all that kind of physical goodness. Now you may notice that some of the shadows here are looking rather strange. Don't worry about this just yet. We are going to fix this in a later lecture. So that's it for this lecture. We've looked over the different types of light that we can have in our scene, and the most complex setup being how we do sunlight. I'll see you in the next lecture.